Hello there! Amongst celebrated film scores, certainly some of the most uplifting are the love themes, the ones that successfully convey two characters' admiration for one another and make our hearts soar, as corny as that sounds. And today I'm going to count down my favorite love themes that are both emotional and heartwarming. Now, this is simply for instrumentals. If I would include songs, this would mainly consist of Disney music. So, here's my list of favorite love themes. King Kong by James Newton Howard. Now, this is not necessarily a love story, and Anne certainly doesn't see Kong as anything more than a ferocious beast in the original film. However, Peter Jackson did inject a really fantastic bit of chemistry between the two in his remake. Even though James Newton Howard was only brought in at the last minute to replace Howard Shore on the film's soundtrack, he immediately managed to showcase the sweetness between the two characters. A notable track is Central Park, and while many people found the ice skating scene cheesy, I thought the combination of the imagery and the music made it a very touching moment. And it made Kong's eventual fall from the Empire State Building that much more tragic and sad. Romeo and Juliet by Nino Rota. Quite possibly the most famous love story of all time, it makes sense it would have a theme that nicely conveys the attraction they have for one another. The score is very medieval in its composition, succeeding in transporting the viewer back to the Verona of that time period. There's also a simplicity that makes it instantly likable, and also represents the innocence of these two characters. Romeo and Juliet are essentially love-struck teenagers, uncertain of their future, especially with their families bickering at one another. The theme is a pivotal part of why the film works so well, and why it's a standard for all English lessons that teach the source material. Titanic by James Horner. I know this is a movie that gets plenty of people snickering, but I genuinely think it's a fantastic undertaking that really pulled it off. It's very much a classic Hollywood spectacle, and while the visuals were an important part of that, the score played a role as well. It's triumphant and big, much like the Titanic itself, but it never sings. When that famous scene of Jack and Rose at the front of the ship plays with the camera swirling and Horner's music playing, it just all clicks. This is a case when the music really does succeed in elevating the love story, regardless of James Cameron's occasionally corny dialogue. Laugh at Titanic all you want, but I think it succeeds in its ambitions, and the score deserves all the acclaim and awards it has received over the years. How to Train Your Dragon by John Powell, specifically the track Romantic Flight. While I do think the romance between Hiccup and Astrid is forced, and takes away from his relationship with Toothless that drives the majority of the film, I cannot deny the incredible power of this piece by Powell. It perfectly captures the feeling of flying through the air and going through the clouds. The sequence itself is beautifully crafted and breathless, and in some ways this theme can be attributed to Toothless giving Hiccup the ride of his life, in addition to the relationship that Hiccup and Astrid have. While Forbidden Friendship is my favorite track in the score, Romantic Flight is an utter delight as well. The Empire Strikes Back by John Williams. Most people remember the Imperial March from this entry in the Star Wars series, but the track that most leaves an impact on me is Han Solo and the Princess, which depicts the slowly budding romance between Han and Leia. This theme nicely showcases both their back and forth, as well as that hidden desire between them. It complements the characters so perfectly, and Williams really goes out for the scene where Han is cryogenically frozen, and he says that famous response to Leia's "I love you." While I'm on the subject of Star Wars, the theme from Attack of the Clones, titled Across the Stars, is fantastic too. Yes, Anakin and Padme are cardboard, but Williams does a much better job of portraying the danger of their forbidden love and the Jedi Council's influence over it than the dialogue does. If you're able to at least slightly elevate the material based purely on musical notes, you know you're doing something right as a composer. Superman by John Williams. Yes, John Williams again. Though, can you blame me? The scene of Superman taking Lois on a flight over New York City is still one of the best moments in any superhero movie, perfectly capturing their sweet relationship even though he is from another world, and she is blissfully unaware she actually works alongside him every day. As the most famous couple in comic book history, it was important to capture the right tone in the score when portraying them on the big screen. You really sense the connection between the two of them, and while the special effects do make you believe a man can fly, There are many scenes in Superman that would not be the same without Williams' brilliant compositions, especially this one. As much as the Lois Lane in Man of Steel is my favorite screen depiction of the character, and I really do love Hans Zimmer's main theme, it did lack an iconic love theme for Lois and Superman. Hopefully Zimmer composes one for the sequel that matches up there with the love theme Williams composed. Beauty and the Beast by Alan Menken. As I said at the beginning, this is not for the song, but rather for the track Transformation, when the beast transforms back into a human. Of course, Glen Keane's animation is magnificent, and the emotion of the scene also comes through via the storyboarding and how we've grown to love these characters through the course of the film. However, Menken's composition is a very important element in getting that emotional response. The use of the horns is perfect, and I love how the music rises higher and higher as the transformation happens. This is my favorite Disney animated feature, and the way Menken uses music to tell the story is a major reason for that. When Belle looks into his eyes, we feel the same as her, because the music is so fantastic in showcasing her thought process. While the title song may have been the big Grammy-winning hit, Alan Menken's orchestral contributions to the soundtrack are just as memorable and heartwarming. Edward Scissorhands by Danny Elfman. Unlike a lot of the entries on this list, this is a romance that does not do much for me. As much as I like Tim Burton's work, this is a film that always kind of rubs me the wrong way. Except when it comes to the music. Most of the charm and whimsy of Edward Scissorhands for me is in Elfman's score. It is incredibly magical and uplifting even if I'm unimpressed by the imagery it's accompanying. Elfman is also one of those composers who knows how to use a choral background, and the oohs don't feel unnecessary, but rather an important part of the piece. I guess it's not surprising this film was later adapted into an opera, because the music has that feel to it, but not in a bombastic way. While I don't care for the relationship it's representing, I cannot help but be enchanted by this lovely theme. Love Story by Francis Lay. If Titanic is considered a corny romance, then Love Story is often cited as the corniest of them all. And yet, I really like it. Yes, it's incredibly cheesy to the nth degree, and yet I cannot help but be cast under its spell of young love and ultimate tragedy. Francis Lay's score has since become iconic, and it's not hard to see why. It captures all the themes of the film in one swoop, and that has survived mostly unscathed, unlike the rest of Love Story, is a treatment to its power and memorability. When the film ends in that famous sad way and the theme kicks in at full force, it's hard not to get at least a little emotional. Sure, love doesn't actually mean never having to say you're sorry, but oh boy, this piece of music is anything but cheesy. Blade Runner by Vangelis. While most of the other themes are very orchestral, this is definitely on the electronic side, as is typical of Vangelis. However, it does fit considering the ideas presented in the film. While Rachel is a replicant, there's still a strange sort of attraction that Rick Deckard feels for her, and the theme is an excellent showcase of that. It's a very soothing sound, in major contrast to the darker imagery and audio seen in the rest of Blade Runner. There's this sense from the score of the two of them wanting to escape, just go away from the pouring cityscape of Los Angeles, and almost plays into the idea that Deckard is also a replicant. Yes, even the often discussed theories of whether he's a replicant can use the score as proof in that argument. And it's worth mentioning that it's got that 1980s vibe, which is one of many reasons I love this film so much. Love Actually by Craig Armstrong. For many, this is considered the quintessential British romantic comedy, and it's not hard to see why, as it manages to entwine all these various storylines together, and yet, while it comes close, it never becomes annoyingly schmaltzy and cloying. And one of the best parts of this movie is the score by Craig Armstrong. It captures the uplifting tone of the film while being necessarily quiet at times too. The Portuguese theme is fantastic with its more quiet tones, and it's one of those compositions where even listening to it outside the film, it's not hard to recall the on-screen imagery. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's theme is rousing and exciting, and is the big reason why the cliched running through the airport scene works so well without entering the cheesy territory it could have. Although this scene gets a little more heartwarming if you're a Phineas and Ferb fan. Overall, the score is one of the reasons Love Actually remains such an annual staple for so many people. And my favorite love theme is Cinema Paradiso by Nino Morricone. Is it honestly any surprise? The montage of forbidden kisses that finished the film is one of my all-time favorite movie endings, and Morricone's score is so perfectly orchestrated, capturing the right feelings of emotion and happiness. It symbolizes not just the lost loves of our lives, but also the ones we continue to revisit on the screen. What we experience in the rest of the film is brilliant, but the way director Giuseppe Tornatore ended the film is what placed it easily in my top 5 favorite films. Ennio Morricone is said to be a very difficult composer to work with, but when he delivers, he really delivers. And his score for Cinema Paradiso is not only my favorite composition of his, and not only my favorite love theme, I think it might easily be one of the greatest film scores of all time. And if you've never seen Cinema Paradiso, it's definitely a film I'd highly recommend, as it's an absolutely brilliant piece of art and a wonderful celebration of movies and the hard work and passion that make it onto the screen. And with that, I'll see you next time.